So now let's talk about the movie Highest to Lowest. This is your take on a 1960s classic, High and Low. What attracted you to this story?
Well, when I when I when I first got to NYU Graduate Film School, I got introduced to world cinema. And a large part of that was a film was a great Japanese filmmaker, Akira Kurosawa. And in fact, the film Rashomon was really the basis for my first film, She's Gotta Have It, way back in 1986. Denzel sent me the script, and even before I read it, I knew I wanted to do it. It wasn't until recently that we started to shoot the film that it'd been 18, 19 years. I can't remember the exact number when Denzel and I had worked last time on Inside Man. So this is number five. And if anybody knows baseball, we're batting 1,000, 5 for 5. Denzel Washington, Spike Lee, Dean Lee, back together again. I'm not going to start singing that song.
This is the fifth movie. So we now have Highest to Lowest, Inside Man. Let me see if I got all of them. Mo Better
You got to do it in
Blues.
order, though. In order, in
Oh,
order, in order.
in order. Okay. Um, Wait, is Mo Better Blues first, then Malcolm X?
Yes.
Okay.
He got game,
He Got Game, Inside Man,
then, and now highest to
and now
lowest.
Highest to Lowest. What is it about Denzel Washington that makes this partnership work?
Number one, we trust each other. There's love in the work. And I'd like to say real quick that, and I know I might get, criticized for this, but I think Denzel Washington is the greatest living actor today. Now, if you ask Martin Scorsese, he's going to say Robert De Niro. If Sidney Lumet was alive, he would say Al Pacino. France would say Brando. Brando's not alive, but it's all love. And, Scorsese's my guy. Brando. So it's not just LeBron, LeBron, Michael Jordan, GOAT thing. It's just I never worked with those other actors. And Denzel, I mean, he amazes me. He amazes me every time we work together. And it's a blessing that this is our fifth time. Dynamic duo, you know.
Is there a sixth in the works?
Well, here's the thing. Denzel, for a period of time, was talking about retirement. So I was saying this is the last film together, but he has like three more things lined up. I'm praying on my knees that we get to do a 6 for 6.
Well, we'll be looking forward to that one. This was your first time, I understand, working with ASAP Rocky, though, right? So what was that like
Oh
for
yeah,
you?
he's a phenomenal actor, and notice I didn't say rapper. He is when he's in front of the camera. He's an actor. I told him last night. We had the premiere here in LA. I said, "Yo, your next film, you can't be a rapper. You got show us your range." But and Denzel is such a powerful actor that if you get, I mean, you got to go toe to toe,
Yeah.
and like in the ring, and Denzel and Rocky were exchanging blows, but it lifted the whole scene up with the confrontation and the movie at the same time too.
And there was a rap battle in this between the two of them?
Well, it wasn't scripted like that, but it turned into that. In fact, during the scene, his character's name is Young Film. He says, "Well, we turn into rap battle." Denzel's dropping bars. Nas, Illmatic.
Well, so let me
Shout out
ask
to Nas, brother.
let me ask you about a line that repeats that Denzel's character says several times throughout the movie. All money ain't good money. All money ain't good money. The importance of repeating that.
He said that to Jerry Jones the other day on ESPN. But here, the thing, and all jokes aside, the thing that I love about this film, it talks about morals,
Yeah.
morality, and the the jam that Denzel's put up in his character. The audience is gonna take that and put themselves in Denzel's character's place and say, "What would I do?" And that means that you have an engagement with the audience. And we live in a world where money's put over morals. And morality, we have to get back to what's moral, what's right, what's righteous, and what's coming from the devil. And that, I think, that's the underpinning. This is what makes this film great. Now, it's from the original is from Akira Kurosawa, 1963, but it was a writer, Ed McBain, who wrote so it was an American writer wrote the script. Kurosawa adapted it, and now we're doing this. Is very important, Victor. This is very important. This is not a remake. This is a reinterpretation.
Yeah.
A reinterpretation. And I told her, for my thing, like, I'm a jazz musician. We're approaching this, where there was many, many times where great jazz musicians did reinterpretations of American standards. For example, John Coltrane. My favorite things. That's not Julie Andrews singing that, in The Sound of Music. Look, her, Rodgers, Hammerstein, great, but Coltrane flipped it. Miles flipped it. My Funny Valentine. So our approach was, we have a standard, which is the Kurosawa film, but we're going to take a jazz musician's approach to it and, put some hot sauce on it.
Yeah, put a little spice in it. And we certainly got
little spice.
We got a little spice in it.
Let's be clear, no disrespect to the original, to the standard.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. There was something that you focused on that we've talked about on this show, and the subtlety in the way in which you approached it, I think, was certainly appreciated.
Oh, wait. Did I hear subtlety with a Spike Lee joint?
Yeah, no, it was subtle.
I've never heard that word before.
No, but listen, let me explain. So we talk about the disparities in the coverage of and the search for missing people of color. And you had just the mention of ebony alerts,
Right.
and that not being passed and made law in New York State. Why was that important?
Right. Any film I do, there's an opportunity to slip in some stuff that critiques what's happening in the world. I do it, and hopefully without making the story, off the rails. But there's way, that you could do it and just, have these little things out there and people think about. And it's been well demonstrated that missing children, people of color, are not given the same, what you want to call it, as other people get it. So that was a place to get that, and a little nugget in there, but not really get off the story.
Yeah, subtlety. We caught it.
Oh, what's that word again?
Subtleties, Mike. Subtlety. So let's.
Well, you know what? I'm getting older.
Mellowing out.
You know what? But yeah, I don't have to be throwing the garbage can through Sal's Famous Pizzeria anymore.
You know what? Actually, I'm glad you bring that up. Because that transitions to some of the other stuff I want to talk about. And let's talk about things that are happening in the world. This week we learned that the White House is now going to conduct this review of Smithsonian properties, including the the Museum of African American History and Culture, where, Radio Raheem's radio is, and other artifacts from Do the Right Thing and from your films. Your portrait is at the National Portrait Gallery. And so I wonder what you think, as someone who's been outspoken about this administration and other political matters. What do you think about this this review that, according to the White House, is to make sure that it's removing divisive or partisan narratives and restore confidence in our shared cultural institutions. What do you think?
Well, it's doing the opposite. And when they moved Dr. Martin Luther King's, is a statue or a painting? I knew they moved it. My Morehouse brother, I just knew that that was the beginning, that it wasn't going to stop just moving Dr. Martin Luther King from where it was. And this is the state of this country where they just, they keep going. They're gonna say is that slavery and slavery never happened. That's next. And slavery never happened. Our ancestors weren't taken from Mother Africa and brought here in 1619 and built this country. Free labor. So there's a great film by Peter Weir, starring Mel Gibson, his own politics. But the title of that movie is The Year of Living Dangerously. And that's where we are now. Peter Weir's film. The title, for me, is chilling now. The Year of Living Dangerously.
So you were also one of, I think it's now more than 2,000 members of the Writers Guild of America who signed on to this letter, open letter. And here's one line from it. We don't have a king, we have a president. And the president doesn't get to pick what's on television, in movie theaters, on stage, on our bookshelves, or in the news. What do you think, the end goal of these types of assessments and reviews? What's the end goal?
The end goal is that to let this administration know that we know what's up. We know this is okie doke. And also alert our fellow Americans who might not know what's going down now. So going on record saying, we see what you're doing.
And what do you
see what you're doing?
What do you think they're trying to do? What do you think their purpose is?
To roll back the clock. To roll back the clock. And what's interesting is that the world leaders, they know what's going on here too. The citizens of the world know what's happening here in the United States, formerly the so-called beacon of democracy. It don't look like that now.
And you don't think America is still the beacon of democracy?
You got to choose countries or people, individuals by their actions. And I don't think that the actions now in this administration show that doesn't look like the beacon of democracy to me, in my opinion. Yeah. But I'm just one kid from Brooklyn, New York. So what are we going to say?
This is the question that
an old kid
now. A question I've had several times to several artists is that how much does the political environment influence the art? And specifically in your case, what's funded? Like, could Do the Right Thing get funding today in this environment to be made?
Yeah, I think so. That film only cost $6.5 million. But yeah, I'm glad you brought up that point, my brother, because Do the Right Thing was done knowing that in that fall it was going to be the mayor's. Koch had to go, in my opinion, and we had graffiti in the film saying "Dump Koch." So that was made specifically in that tense racial era in New York City, and wanted David Dinkins to be the first African-American mayor, and he won. And I'm not saying it was the film that did that, but there was this feeling like Koch had to go. There was too many racial BS, going around, and then if you look at it in the Do the Right Thing, Ray Rahim is choked to death in a chokehold by NYPD, which prompted the character I played, Mookie, to throw the garbage can through the window of Sal's famous pizzeria.
Yeah.
Great cast, Daniela,
Yeah.
John Turturro, Richard Edson, Ruby, D, Ozzie Davis. I mean, it was a landmark film.
A classic. A classic.
And also, we were talking about global warming in that film. We were a lot of stuff. We had the crystal ball on. You know.
Yeah. Speaking of New York City mayors, let's talk about Zoran Mamdani. Have you backed him for mayor?
Not officially, but I'm going to vote for him.
Well, that's the same thing, I imagine.
I guess this makes it official.
I guess that makes it official. Let me ask you, why? Why does he have your vote over former Governor Cuomo, Mayor Adams? Why Mamdani?
We have to move forward. Have to move forward for equality for New Yorkers to make this, again, the greatest city in the world. And you look at the people who are backing these other candidates, you know, they're in the past. So he's ahead now. But look, you know, I'm a big sports fan, and I've been in too many games where you think the game is over, and then, especially being a Knicks fan. So I'm not counting my chicken. Look, I'm gonna, you know, and also yes, this is official endorsement. You know, and so this is the year living dangerously. That applies to New York City, not just United States of America.
Yeah. We are about the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. And of course, you directed the phenomenal 4-part series, When the Levees Broke. You're now executive producer of another series, Katrina Come Hell and High Water. What does the
I did. There's 3 episodes. I did the last one.
the third episode. What does
Yes,
the scope of time tell you about the impacts of not just the storm, but everything that happened after that?
In my opinion, New Orleans has never recovered from that. They've lost a large base of the black population who moved to better lives in Houston, Atlanta, Charlotte, and it's a national shame that New Orleans is still struggling 20 years later. And so I was asked to come aboard on this with my brother Sam Pollard, who was leading the way. And it was heartbreaking to see people still struggling 2 decades after that.
Is that
You know,
is
it's a national shame.
Is that the failure of leadership, or is that the consequence of displacement?
It's a whole gang of people that could be pointed at, and it's excuse my language, but it's a goddamn shame. You know, the culture, so much culture comes out of New Orleans, and it's like the reason I feel that we needed to do is to remind people 20 years later what happened 20 years ago and how little progress has happened to save American citizens.
Yeah. One more here.
The year of living dangerously.
The year of living dangerously. You've been outspoken about Israel's war with Hamas and the impact on Palestinians. What's your assessment of how Hollywood has addressed this or handled it?
Well, I don't think Hollywood's going to do anything I ain't expect any films coming out. I made with documentaries. But here's the thing, my brother. And I say this with all, whatever the word is. Seeing these pictures of these children, Palestinian children, starving. And I got to give a shout out to my Jewish Brooklyn brother, Bernie Sanders, where I saw this clip where he had a stack of papers, and each page was a Palestinian child that was killed. I got to give it up for Bernie. He's Jewish, but something about that Brooklyn. He got there and had this stack of papers, and each page was an article or a document about this young Palestinian child was killed. And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart that what is happening there. And I like to say this too. And it should not be a place where if you say you're against what's happening in Gaza, that automatically makes you anti-Semitic. I'm aware of this. I did a film, Jungle Fever, was considered anti-Semitic. And my Jewish lawyer, the great Arthur Klein, called me up and said, Spike, if you don't write, and everybody here, you can do the research. Do the research. He called me up and said, Spike, if you don't write an op-ed piece for the New York Times saying you're not anti-Semitic, you will never work again in Hollywood. He said, Spike, I'm not telling you as your lawyer, I'm telling you as a friend. And I said, how am I going to get an op-ed piece into the New York Times? He said, don't worry about it. People do the research, look it up. And I wrote that because I believed him. He said, Spike, if you don't write a letter saying you're not anti-Semitic, you will never, ever, ever, ever work in Hollywood again. I'll leave it at that.
Spike, thank you.
Thank you, my brother. Keep doing your thing, all right?
I appreciate it.
I know it's tough. Come on, brother. All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you.